The following video is concerning safety limits and how not to exceed them, and warnings concerning a specific subject YouTube does not want covered. Because of doing that, they claim they're doing it because they're trying to prevent something that happens rarely and does not happen to a lot of people and is not really helping anything by just preventing us from knowing things that are safety issues. On top of that, if you tell people how to do something more safely, getting nannied into the ground where you can't tell people means that people get hurt, and I'm against that, so the video is being made. The answer, if you're not aware of it, is 185 grains in your cereal, or 12 grams crackers, or 6.75 drams of a good stiff drink. Look at their equivalents and see how close they are. They're not. They're designed to be slightly off from each other because apparently putting certain number ratios in your video will get it flagged. You should be able to deal with one twist in 16 inches, 45-inch long, 0.51 inch inner diameter piece of pipe that starts off at 0.498 inches. Because there's literally a pipe like that. It actually matches exactly the lands versus the canyons we're talking about here. The idea here is to start off with the least amount to get the job done so that you can clear out the interior of this and make the machinery work and make whatever you're propelling come out. Let's call it a Nerf dart. And now we're past the 150 mark, so I can talk freely. You have to have a starting point if you're going to reload ammunition. With the 50 BMG, you start with what they refer to as a slow burning version of a rifle powder. You're propelling anything from a 650 grain to an 800 grain object. That object is 52 grams or 1.8 ounces, going 2,000 feet per second. That's the same mass as you deal with 12-gauge shotgun slugs, but it's squeezed down from 72.9 caliber, it's 73 caliber, down to 50 caliber. In fact, there's one where you just take a bullet from a 50 BMG and load it in a 12-gauge and just shoot it out with a sabot. The propellant range goes from 185 grains to 265 grains, dynamic range, for minimum and maximums. Now, for some of you who are watching this video, they'll be like, yeah, that sounds normal. Others who know exactly what I'm talking about are like, oh my God, don't say that. Powder, minimum and maximum range from a working test to blowing the gun up because it's essentially turned from a cartridge to a grenade or a landmine. One propellant has a dynamic range from 0 to, oh my God, don't do that, of 185 grains to 250 grains. Lots of room in there where you can fiddle around with it. You can get it precise enough because it's not being an extremely efficient powder. Then you have another one where it starts at 200 grains and the max load is 218. 200 to 218 is a little bit of a narrow range to get it, from right as rain to a life filled with pain. Going from, a plinking round to a Kentucky ballistics level incident. Never mind that you have to pick the right propellant and it has to say right on it for a 50 BMG. Do not substitute and do not mix propellants because obviously one of them having an extremely narrow range and being heavy requirement added to something that could start really low and have a dynamic range, they might chemically act synergistically and make everything go to hell. Talk about feet per second. We're talking about anywhere from 2,800 feet per second to 3,000 feet per second. That seems like a fairly narrow range, and it is. The muzzle energy, because speed is a much more important factor for muzzle energy, works out to 1,300 to 14, maybe even 1,500 feet per second. But that's from the propellant. And again, the propellant range on one of them, 180 to 250. The other one is 200 to 218. One of them is much more fiddly, precision-based, and you have to learn some basics about starting points. Reloading info that was consistently posted in the past now erased due to ITAR restrictions because terrorism, or because some state decided to outlaw it, or they just kept harassing this host or that host to get rid of data, so I dug up a bunch of archives and they're down below in the description. Powder manufacturers, many of them make it, but make sure it says right on it 50 BMG. In fact, get the specific stuff. It's the main reloading component besides the bullet, besides the primers. Primers are just 50 BMG primers. There's two types. One of them has its own built-in anvil. The other one has to rely on the anvil built into the cartridge. You'll have to worry about that. If it's the one that has an anvil built into the cartridge, you're going to make a little, little fork-shaped thing with two pins on it to get in the pins and push out that primer. You're not going to be using a fast press. You're going to do this slow. Recommend you get the ones that don't require it. Boxer versus Berdan. It's not an argument you should have. It's a fact you should learn. Cartridge overall length and bullet, which is bullet and cartridge length, added together. How long is the maximum length that it's supposed to be inserting a bullet? A bunch of technical details. Next. Powder charge. Again, start slow or low. 185. Well, maybe it'll get stuck. That's why you get out a rod. That's why you drive the bullet out of the muzzle. You never get in front of the muzzle to drive it back. Don't. You make sure you have a gun that you can clear manually. Learn how to dismantle it completely if it's necessary to dismantle it. If it's a bolt action, it's not going to be that much work. Make sure, again, you never, ever do it from the muzzle unless you know for a fact what you're doing. If you have any question, just don't. Take the damn thing apart and push it out through the muzzle. I'm not kidding. I'm not. That's a lot of muzzle energy. It's a lot of energy out of the damn thing. We're going to do a basic corollary. Volumetric measure is something you're not allowed to ever say or think again. If you do, I want you to take a small baseball bat and hit yourself in the nose. You have to stop thinking in volume. But what about the collets and the yeah? Let's continue. If a match grade ammunition should be as good as you make it, it's only as good as you make it, and it has to be the best on the planet. You're going to have to weigh out every single charge one at a time for every cartridge. Okay. They never use volumetric measure. Containers of the stuff are sold by the pound. The amount of matter, that means its mass, its weight, converting into a gas by burning. 1,000 to 1 volumetric change, or 10 by 10 by 10 volume change. You're going to have to weigh it because it gives you the total chemical energy in it. Weighing it on an accurate scale, as accurate as you can afford. First thing, because something you're going to use over and over again for maybe 5 to 10 years, spend the extra money if you can afford it. You're going to have to do it. Or you're going to have to do really careful balance scales and be really fiddly. What you do is you weigh out 10 charges. Then you find out its volume. And you see if it's consistent from the top to the bottom of the container after you pour it into another container. Is it? If the propellant isn't 100% dead on for 10 charges added together so you can weigh them by volume, you can't use volume ever. And if you find out it's consistent, you still can't use volume. Every time you do a reload, you need to spin that box, get it fluffed up, settle it back down, measure out your charge for the day. Okay, what is the volume? Then adjust the volumetric measure to match that and just keep using that, but weigh it every 4 or 5 times to make sure you're not outside of range. Look out for clumps. Look out for bad ammo, propellant. Casual reloading based on weight of charge has to be better than using volume simply because that is the actual standard you're supposed to work with. Yes, I know in an automated system, on machines, and even reloading presses are based on the volume it takes up because it has to be, because weighing it is impractical. Except, again, what was that narrow range? Oh yeah, 20 fucking grains and you're blowing up your gun out of 200. Buy the powder with a more dynamic range from 0 to hero. Weigh the shit anyway. Make sure you fluff it up and mix it to where it's consistent. Test it. Make sure it's really consistent. Never trust that it is. Never trust that your machines are accurate. Double check everything. Spend a little bit more money on the scale than you would do on a single pack of bullets, maybe. Next. Consistency. Make sure the bullets are consistently sized. Make sure the cases are resized correctly. Follow instructions. You might not want to worry about annealing the cartridge every time. Unless you're seeking absolute perfect accuracy and highest performance, stay within safe range and be happy the thing is always safe. Make sure it's enough to cycle the action. Maybe that's all you need. Be economical about it. Safest, most economical, lowest cost plinking round may be your bias. Should be. Do not mix the brands. Do I have to say that again? Don't mix grades of propellant even from the same brand. The propellant shape and pattern determines its burn rate. Make sure it says on it it's for 50 BMG. Lowest safety risk, best accuracy, or highest accuracy. Do that for, and this is the recommendation from every reloader, for 4 years before you try to do anything more intense. You don't have to go for the lowest end, but just stay in the safe range. Do a series of 10 rounds, tests, no more than halfway to hero versus zero. Make sure they're absolutely dead on. Weigh them manually. See which one does exactly what it's supposed to do. Have experience with some ammo that is factory bought. And this is not just for 50 BMG. This is for 12 gauge shotgun shells. This is for reloading 223, 556, or reloading 22 long rifle, which is really hinky, and I don't recommend that ever, although I'm coming up with my own round. Next, my experience. Again, I'm an idiot on the internet, saving this for last. My experience with this stuff is testing ammunition for somebody for, I think, 1 or 2 summers in this series, testing loads, watching stuff explode, being behind so much shit that I couldn't get hurt. When testing a round, shoot it into a hole in the ground. You don't have to shoot at a target. Don't do it for a video on YouTube, because you might end up being on the news instead. Always, always, always assume every single time you do something with a device that is designed to be a deadly weapon that it doesn't pick or choose who the target is. And sometimes even if you do, it can decide otherwise. Again, starting with Wikipedia and looking at all the deleted pages, see the link below, and seeing what stuff has been thrown away or flat out hidden. The fact that most, actually virtually all of the links I have below, except for the Wikipedia page, are redacted links that now go to pages that try to hijack your browser. And yeah, might get me flagged. It's a little 4-inch cylinder filled with pain and death. Respect it. And next, if you're not aware of it, I think it was Hodgdon's, a very reliable company that put out the powder with the most dynamic range before you could actually do something stupid and blow things up. Double check everything. Use 2 different scales. And yes, when you buy a scale, you're going to need to buy it in cash because someone will assume you're a drug dealer. Because you're going to have to get the one that the drug dealers would use. You have to get the good one. Sorry. Also weigh the cartridges to see if there's some unknown mass in there or they're out of range. Reject the ones that are way off kilter. In fact, sort them by how heavy they are with the primer removed. Learn to clean them. You don't have to go all crazy about it, but you might want to learn how to do that if you need to. Now, why am I doing this video? It's a request video. Also, I was going to do the video anyway. I had all the data sitting around, but that's from 2 months ago. And yes, I double-checked to see if it was accurate, and even since then, some of the pages have deleted themselves mysteriously. Again, the U.S. military and every other government just about uses this cartridge. It doesn't surprise me, that and the fact California wants this stuff banned. Reloading ammunition isn't just a hobby. It's kind of mandatory because of how ridiculously expensive some of this is. My main pathway for this was I wanted to use 50 BMG rounds to make all brass cartridges because they're cool looking for 12 gauge. It's a starting point. I've almost worked out how to do it. Just have to build dies. That's going to be a while. It may never happen. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. Safe reloading to all of you. And YouTube reviewer, I'm saving this for the end because you're not going to pay attention anyway. I'm trying to tell people how not to hurt themselves or anyone else because they want to shoot a target with a weird cartridge and a weird gun that hopefully they didn't make out of pipe. By the way, the pipe diameter is absolutely matching. But seriously, YouTube, stop flagging shit when we're trying to save each other